We're all waiting for the day we hit financial independence. That's when we'll finally quit our jobs and have time to learn a new hobby, start that house project, take a longer vacation, or prioritize our health. You probably have a list of things you're saving for after FI. But what if you don't have to wait another decade to start? Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. The challenge is your career is eating up most of your time and energy. And since you're not financially independent yet, walking away isn't an option. But what if you didn't have to choose between all work now and all freedom later? What if you could work a few years, take a break, then return to work, and repeat that cycle? Instead of one long career followed by one long retirement, what if you took mini retirements along the way? That's not just a theory. Today's guest has done it. Jillian Johnsrud has taken over a dozen mini retirements in her life and now helps others do the same. In this episode, Jillian shares how to organize your time off, why some employers actually say yes to these breaks, and how mini retirements might even improve your career. She also provides examples on how mini retirements have sped up rather than slow down people's path to financial independence, which I find super interesting. Mini retirements are one of my favorite concepts. I've taken one myself, and I always encourage my friends to consider them too. So today, I'm making my case to you. Maybe it's better to retire often than retire once. I hope you enjoy my conversation with the tango dancing free spirit, Jillian Johnsrud. Jillian, can you tell me about an adventurous mini retirement that you took that really transformed your life?
So I've taken about a dozen of them, and that's a super hard question in that for almost everyone, a mini retirement is life-changing, mostly in the fact that you have so much capacity to change during a mini retirement. You have so much capacity to grow as a person, and because you change, then your life changes with you when you go back to work. Like you can't show up as a new person and everything around you stay the same. And so there's been a lot of them, like a lot of really like the ones other people would love, probably like amazing road trips with my family and my kids and traveling Europe and learning foreign languages and like living abroad and doing all those cool things. The one I'm currently most obsessed with is last year, I took a month off to learn tango, and I am in it to win it. Like, I love this so much. Yeah, any tango dancers out there, like, slide into my DMs. Like, I want to go dance. I'd only been dancing tango for like 3 or 4 weeks, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am obsessed with this. This is amazing. And so I took a whole month off of work and I think I did like 60 hours of tango dancing. Tango's super hard to learn, so it takes a long time. Yeah. But, so here's one of the cool things. Cool to me. One of the reasons I did this was I had met this guy, and he would be so embarrassed if I said these nice things about him. But I don't think he listens to podcasts, so we're safe. But he's like 75, 80, and I met him in a swing class. He also dances tango. And I was like, oh my gosh. One, he's incredible at every dance. He knows like, I don't know, 15 of them. He goes to like festivals. He dances till like 5 a.m. He has all these friends. He's super like in shape and coordinated and social, and everyone loves him. And I just thought, shoot, at 80, this is when most of those things are dialing down for people. They have less social activity. They have less friendships. They have less activity. They have less coordination. They have less mental stimulation. He's not even like, I want to be like him when I'm 80. I want to be like him right now. If I could be like him, that would be like a massive upscale to my life because he's so awesome. And I have this exercise, I think it's in the book, but thinking about like, what would your 80-year-old self say? What would your 80-year-old self think? How would they feel about this mini retirement? And I just thought about my 80-year-old self, and I was like, she would look back and be like, learning tango for a month was like the smartest thing you did, because it's made my life better as an 80-year-old in a dozen different ways. I'm in a massively different spot socially, physically, mentally than my peers because I have this incredible hobby that you gave me. Like, it only cost me, I spent $1,000. So I set a limit. I'm only going to spend $1,000 on this. $1,000 1 month, and I'm like, lifetime investment.
That is such a cool mini retirement that you took. I didn't know about the tango. I don't think you were doing that or had done that last time we talked. I think last time we talked was May of last year. So probably about almost a year ago at this point in time. Tell me a little bit more about the tango mini retirement. How did you think through that? Like, was it like I started doing tango and you're like, oh my gosh, I just immediately need tomorrow to start taking off work so I can fully invest in this? Or what was like the thought process,
Yeah.
especially coming from a mini retirement expert, like how you thought through how you were going to execute this 1 month?
One of the reasons I encourage people to retire often, like my book is called Retire Often. It's not called Take One Cool Mini Retirement in Your Life. Partly because there's a learning curve and it takes a lot of practice and it takes prep and there's like an emotional, sometimes stress. Like there's such a hassle. But every time you do it, you get better at it. And all of it gets easier. The money gets easier. The logistics get easier. Explaining it socially and people being confused, even with this was like my 12th one. But I remember I was walking out of tango class and I mentioned to the person, he was like, yeah, I'd love to move to Argentina someday and like study tango for like a year. And I'm like, yeah, you should absolutely do that. I'm actually going to take a month off to work on tango. And he goes, oh, that's funny. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not joking. Like, I'm going to take a month off. He's like, you're serious? Who does that? And I'm like, I do that. That's me. I do that. But even 12 in, I'm like, oh yeah, people don't really get it. Like, even people who like the idea are like, that's weird. So all of that to say, this was easier for me because I had that skill set and I had those logistics. And honestly, I've gotten better at giving myself permission. Like that's, for some people, the hardest part, just like saying, I want to do this thing. And that's reason enough for me to do it. That's a good enough reason, is because I want to. And you get better at looking at like, when is there an opportunity? Like if you're between jobs or if you randomly get laid off or if something comes up, you get easier at recognizing, oh, hey, actually, I could just do a mini retirement. Yeah, maybe I'll squeeze one of those in. So a couple weeks into learning tango, I'm obsessed. I meet cool 80-year-old guy and I'm like, I want to be like him right now. But especially when I'm 80, there was a tango festival coming up and, you know, I had finished the first draft of the book. I had a little bit of time before I had to start to do the editing. Like it was with the editor. I run a group coaching program, but I wasn't going to be starting that for like 6 weeks. And I was like, actually, this is kind of like the perfect season. Like work's a little bit light. Yeah, I could do a bunch of admin stuff, or I could just take a month off and do tango. I probably spent 2 or 3 weeks kind of getting prepared, getting things organized and getting everything squared away with my assistant, and then took a month off and it was awesome. Like I said, tango's super hard. So like I did not become a tango master, but I got good enough to where I could really enjoy it and it be slightly less uncomfortable and awkward to participate.
What? Do you have a ton of dance experience prior to this?
None.
What?
So I grew up thinking that I would do social dancing because I grew up in a really small town and all the old people knew how to social dance. All of our parents knew how to social dance. Like we had like community dances, like it was a thing. And I thought, oh, I'll do that. I'll actually do that when I grow up. And I didn't. And this is like, if you're kind of wondering like, what would I do in a mini retirement? This is one of the kind of questions to ask yourself. Like, is there anything that maybe you missed the boat on? Is there anything that you thought you would want to do or you planned to do and it just never happened? Because mini retirement's a great opportunity to like double back around. Because I'm super geeky, one of the questions when I'm hanging out with friends that I like to ask, it's such a tangent. I call these parachute questions. So there's questions that like if you're walking along in this conversation, you will eventually get to. And then there's questions like you would never naturally get to. The only way you're going to arrive there is if you parachute into this question. So what are my parachute questions? Is there something in your life that if the opportunity came back around, you would consider doing it? And for me, dance was one of those. Like, I'd kind of missed the boat for whatever reason. And I was like, but I'm 42. Like, I can still learn to dance.
Did you consider going to Argentina? I think that's like one of the capitals of tango, right? I think Tim Ferriss like took a mini retirement and learned tango professionally in Argentina.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, it's a perfect
it's like kind of registering with
activity.
me right now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I'm such a like perfectionist. And I thought that I had like overcome perfectionism until I'm standing 2 inches away from another human being and they are irritated by me failing and being bad at something. And then I'm super self-conscious about all my failure. So I think And I don't know Spanish. Like, it's so intimidating,
Yeah.
but I think I probably will at some point. Like, I'll get close enough to be like, this is going to be way outside of my comfort zone. And I'll do it. When I went to that first tango festival, oh my gosh, I wrote my email list and newsletter. My newsletter is unhinged. Like, if you want randomness in your inbox, like once or twice a month, sign up. But I wrote them from the tango festival because I was literally like about to have a panic attack 3 times a day, like almost ready to be in tears. I had to like go outside and do breathing exercises and like take a walk because it was so far outside my comfort zone. There was no comfort. It was like low-key torture. I don't exactly recommend it. Like, I had enough coping like tools in my toolbox to manage, but yeah, uncomfortable for sure.
That's super impressive. Tango isn't really on my short list, but some kind of social dance maybe that could really get me outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I feel like I would struggle with this choice. Like, part of me is like, go big or go home. Like, you should have went to Argentina and done the whole I'll learn tango in Argentina. But then the other part of me, whenever I start thinking about mini retirements, is like, you know what? I would pretty much be happy doing whatever as long as I'm not working. But I know that's maybe a slippery slope. Like, what could go wrong if someone didn't put a lot of forethought into their mini retirement?
So most people, because we went to elementary school and then middle school and high school and college and our jobs, and other people organized our time for us. Other people told us, here's what you need to be doing. Here's how long you need to be doing it. Here's what success looks like. Here's what mediocrity looks like. And we get really comfortable with that. And a lot of us don't have a ton of practice organizing our own time in a way that's meaningful and enjoyable. Both of those are really important. And so if you don't have a plan at all, even if your goal and your intention is to like recover from burnout and rest, which is an amazing goal, but if you're like, I'll just do nothing, that is an awful plan, because as humans, we usually revert down to like the lowest common denominator, which for a lot of people is like scrolling social media and watching Netflix. And if you're at all ambitious or kind of driven, it can feel very untethered because you have like a lot of people get this sense of, am I doing the right thing? What should I be doing right now? Did I do enough today? Did I do the right things today? It doesn't feel like I did, but maybe I did. I'm not, it's this like, I don't know, like this low level dread of, I think I should be doing something. I don't know what I should be doing right now in this moment. And it can be hard to feel accomplished. What I encourage people to do is plan out like restful activities. If your goal is to recover from burnout, what are activities that you find restful? And that might be take a bath, take a nap, go for a walk, have lunch with a friend, meditate, do yoga, go hiking, like whatever it is for you. But plan to do like 4 or 5 of those a day. It's not you don't have to super optimize. It's not strictly scheduled, but in your 15 hours of awake or whatever, you've got 4 hours that you have some intention that are restful activities. Because then you get to the end of the day and you're like, well, I actually did all the things I said I was going to do. I took a nap and I took a bath and I went for a walk and I went and had lunch with a friend. And that was the goal. And I ticked all those boxes. So, okay, yeah, that was good. I'm successful.
Yeah, you have a list of 10 focuses for mini retirements, one of them being recovering from burnout. Would love to hear about a few of the others too, but I'm curious, do you feel like most of the people that come to you that are about to embark on their first mini retirement, recovering from burnout should maybe be one of those priorities or focuses?
My crowd, for sure, because I usually get mid to late FI people, usually in the like 35 to 50 range. I would say in the book, I kind of go through whether you're going to be in like a hyperproductivity or napping phase. If you've only been working like 8 years, 6 years, like you might be like, I want to go see 18 countries in Europe over 3 months. And it might be action packed and full and like super high energy. And that's exactly what you want and exactly what you need. Like you don't need rest. You need stimulation. Like you've had a boring job and you need to like fill your life with like enthusiasm and learning and excitement. But for most people who've been working like 15, 20 years, just back to back, like it's good to start off with some rest for a lot of people. And maybe that's 2 weeks. Maybe that's a month. Maybe that's 3 months. In step one, I kind of talk about kind of my book or my group coaching has kind of, it's a 4-step process. And that first one, I talk about having like phases of your mini retirement. So picking one intention for each phase. Maybe phase 1 is recovery. Let's say you're going to do, 8 weeks. First 2 weeks, recovery, rest, get caught up on things, like knock through some of your life stuff that is overwhelming you, clear all the mail off the counter kind of stuff. And then maybe phase 2 is like travel and time with like friends or family. And maybe you spend 4 weeks doing that. And then that last phase, maybe you have like some house projects or you want to declutter or there's something else that you want to kind of accomplish. You can have different objectives, but where it goes off the rails, if you're like, I want to recover from burnout, travel and have time with friends and do a house project, and you kind of try to do all of those every day. And when you mix them together, it really amplifies that. Am I doing the right thing right now? I should be resting, but maybe I should be getting that project done. Or maybe I should be going to meet up with my friends, but should I be reading a book? And it creates this a little bit of, I call it unnecessary emotional suffering. Like you don't have to be so confused or kind of disillusioned with your results.
Yeah, I would assume that a lot of people, especially first-time mini retirements that are in the FI community, probably need a little bit of rest. Like not only are they probably grinding at work, but they're grinding with their money too. Like they've been putting in all the work to reach FI as fast as they can and making a lot of sacrifices along the way. And that might have required a lot of DIYing or limited or longer type stuff that's like, man, you need to now take a break. And I was talking to you before we press record that I just got a LinkedIn message from somebody this morning that he actually listened to our very first episode, 142, and was thinking about using a mini retirement to recharge, although he's like 2 to 3 years from fire. It was just taking a little bit longer and he just can't see it all the way through, which I think is totally fair and fine. And we're going to talk later on why you maybe aren't even got to derail your FI journey, but you have a few other focuses for mini retirement. You've named a few. What are can you rattle off a couple of reasons why people might actually take a mini retirement?
The 2 overarching kind of themes that all 10 of these fall into is 1, stuff that doesn't fit into nights and weekends very well. Even if you theoretically could do it, it would take forever. Like me learning tango. I could theoretically learn it over 3 years, or I could take a month off and get ahead of the curve. But there's a bunch of stuff. It's tough to fit into nights and weekends. Like you can't hike the Camino on a weekend. Like you need 30 days to do that. You can't do a massive 10 national park road trip on a 4-day weekend. So things that fit into that category, or things that there's seasons in life with expiration dates. Like if you don't do it now, if you don't do it the next few years, you might never do it. And that opportunity is going to kind of pass you by. And so for a lot of people, it is extended travel. It's slow travel. It's quality time with their friends and their family. A lot of people view these mini retirements as like a big upfront investment. I'm going to invest a ton in these relationships so that when I go back to work, I can just maintain that. It's almost like when you're in college, you get all of this great quality time with your friends. And then you kind of ride on those coattails for the next 10 years. But at some point, you need to reinvest some good quality time or else it's going to fade out. Those relationships, sometimes it's with your aunts or uncles, your cousins, or people that now that you're adults, you don't get. You're not going to spend 3 weeks with them in the summer at their farm. So it's those big upfront investments. For some people, it's their health. They've been working really hard and they've been optimizing all these areas of their life. And there again, it's stuff that's hard to fit into nights and weekends, but they can do that big upfront investment. They can figure out their nutrition. They can figure out their exercise routine so they can go back to work and maintain that. And for some people, it's big projects. Mini retirements don't have to be just sitting on a beach. I took 2 of them that were renovating houses and investing in rentals. And, actually the house I live in right now, we took a 1-month mini retirement, bought it, renovated it, got it rented, and then 6 years later, moved into it. And that, just the math on this. So this is another thing. People are like, oh, mini retirements are going to set me back. That 1-month mini retirement, just to give you like the numbers behind this. We spent 110 on this house, and then we have added, we've done more renovations. We're probably in it for like 200, excluding the yard. That's obscene. We're not even talking about how much money is out in the backyard. That's pretend Monopoly money. That money doesn't even count. It's all make believe. Yeah. But now it's worth like 500, 550. There is no way, if we hadn't taken that mini retirement, I couldn't even afford this house right now, because we did that 1 month thing, which, yeah, we gave up like $3,000 of income and gained $300,000 of equity. Like, I think it worked out.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a common misconception, and I think totally fair. I, as someone who wouldn't know your content, if somebody suggested a mini retirement to me, would be thinking through my head, is this mini retirement worth giving up my income and delaying my financial independence journey further? Yeah. But it sounds like in your case, and I'm guessing you've seen some other cases, that mini retirements might not slow down your FI journey, and maybe in some really specific cases, maybe increase or speed up your journey to FI.
It's so tough as humans. It's so easy for us to imagine downsides because they seem very predictable. Mm-hmm. And it's really tough to imagine the upside because the upside feels so random. It's hard to even know that might come into your life. But just because it's kind of random doesn't mean it's uncommon. I would have to think about my coaching clients, but I would say at least 20, maybe 40%, when they leave their job, they come back to a significantly higher paying job. Here's another beautiful thing about mini retirements is like they force career breaks. One guy I talked to, so he had been at a company for like 10, 15 years. Left, had never done a mini retirement, but left, took a year off. The job he came back to was like 50% more money. 50% more money. And I was like, okay, one, that's amazing. Oh, and he got like a sign-on bonus that covered like 70% of his whole year off cost. So one, that's amazing. But also, I was a little bit like, you should have done this like 3 times already. You would be so much further ahead in your financial journey. And whenever I talk to people who are like 22, 24, I'm like, just plan it this way. Plan that every 2 years, every 3 years, you either negotiate a mini retirement from your employer or you switch jobs and take the time in between. You're probably going to get to 5 faster. And you don't have to take huge mini retirements. Start with a month, start with 3 months. Like, there's a learning curve, build up to that. You mentioned like, should we go big? And I'm like, don't go big, go small, start small. Get your bearings because it's hard to mess up something small. A year in Argentina, that might be a train wreck. 1 month off in Montana learning tango, like the risk is so low. The cost is so low. Like that's going to be 85% upside. And then you can scale up. I can do a year in Argentina in a couple of years. So yeah, kind of planning it in because a lot of people come back to better paying jobs or even in negotiating their mini retirement. Oh, it's unexpected, so it's hard to mentally anticipate. But a lot of people, when negotiating their mini retirement, also negotiate a better job role, a better job title. I had one client that when she was quitting, I said, cool, yeah, I like your plan for quitting for your mini retirement. But when you quit, I also want you to ask for a raise. And she was like, wait, what? Like in the same conversation. I'm going to quit and ask for a raise. And I was like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And she was like, do people do that? And I'm like, you are. Because she was underpaid. And I said, go to them and say, listen, I'm willing to stay on through the busy season. I'm willing to stay on an extra 4 months. All I ask in return is that I'm fairly compensated for my remaining time. And she showed them kind of market analysis and they were like, yeah, absolutely. Totally. It was a 20% raise. And she made a good amount of money. So it was not an insignificant amount of money. But then after her mini retirement, they're like, so I know you really want to do this, but would you come back maybe? We're totally cool with you taking the 3 months off, but would you come back? That massively changes her lifetime earning potential to get, a 20% raise and a mini retirement. But it does so much to supercharge your path towards FI. So it is easy to be like, yeah, this might financially set me back. In reality, I don't see that. And I think a lot of people who've taken mini retirements aren't like, oh, I was like I had to retire 7 years later. Like, they're like, it made no noticeable difference.
Yeah, I took a 7-month mini retirement and was planning on spending 20, and I ended up spending $11,000. And like, well, a part of that, it was 2020 and COVID happened. So a few things got canceled. Also, I was just bored at different periods, and there was like many like little opportunities to like make some money that was just fun and exciting.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, oh yeah, I'll sit in the audience as an extra and watch this show for 4 hours and make $500.
Yeah.
Like, I'm cool with that. Like, things I would never be able to do if I had a job. And I could slow things down. And it's like, I'm not doing things like convenient food because I have plenty of time to make my own food. So like, significantly reduced my expenses, had some unexpected income that came through. And I think you're right. Like, market did pretty well and rebounded that year. And all of a sudden, like, I don't think it really delayed a whole lot. And I have this incredible, amazing experience. And one of my big projects was podcasting. And I started a podcast during my mini retirement. And here I am 5 years later, still on mic, still recording. And I have a business that's all surrounded by podcasting, which is unbelievable and cool and unpredictable.
That's one of the things that when you, especially on longer mini retirements, when you create space in your life, new things will grow, new things will happen. They won't happen. I think because I'm obsessed with gardening. So I think about like a garden box. If you have like a 4x4 garden box and it's packed out with plants, and that's all of your time and all of your energy and all of your resources are just going to keep those plants alive, then yeah, those are the plants you get. If you clear a bunch of those out, if you clear out the work plant, which might take up 70% of the space, all of a sudden you have space for new things to grow. And if you're a little bit intentional about maybe experimenting with some cool plants you might want to have in the future, like, it creates these opportunities that shift the whole trajectory of your life. And one of the things you mentioned, that slight tangent, but I think it's a good point to get to, how like you earned a little bit of money doing random things. I know a lot of people in the FI community that are like, yeah, when I retire, like maybe I'll pick up some things here or there, but they've never done it. And so they're not really confident of what would that look like? Would I enjoy it? How much money could I actually make? It's just this question mark that doesn't give them the courage or the confidence to make a big change. But if you've done it a bunch of times and you're like, I know, like, there's like, I have experience. I have tested the hypothesis. I know, like, there's a bunch of cool things that I can do to fill my time on kind of a down day that bring in this amount of money. It gives you so much more confidence to pivot and to try something new, because these aren't all just theories. You actually have the evidence.
And I think that's really, really important. Circling back to what you're talking about with your employer too, if I were to like put my former recruiter hat on as well, that situation that you were talking about where one of your clients negotiated a 20% raise and then they took the 3 months off, and then the employer was like, after you're done, like you can take that, like, but after you're done, would you be interested in coming back? I wouldn't even think that would be a crazy situation, because in all honesty, like, once again, as a former recruiter, like, it's probably got to take me 3 to 6 months to post the role, do the interviews, make the offers, get the hire, get them started, onboard them. Like, when I'm like thinking through that, and now I'm like rolling the dice, like, is this a better, like, were they better than the former person? Like, if I already enjoy the person that is in that role, they're doing a really great job, but they just want 3 months off, like, I'm probably finding a way to make that happen for them.
Yes, I always encourage people. So everyone has a reason that a mini retirement won't work for them. Either they feel like they don't make enough money, or they make a lot of money and they feel like their job's too important. Like, one way or the other. And I always tell people with the really important jobs, like I was working at an event and like a CFO, some C-suite job. And he was like, there's no way I could take a month off. Absolutely no one else does my job. I'm way too important. I'm absolutely essential. And like, they can't even find someone to replace me. And I was like, okay, perfect. So super important. I get that. How long would it take them to hire someone for your position? And he was like, oh, that's 6 months. And I'm like, yeah, because you have a super important job. You're hard to replace. Awesome. How long would it take to onboard that person to where they're even at 80% of what you're doing? And he's like, yeah, that's 6 months. And I'm like, okay, so they could give you a year or give you a month off, or they could take a year of subpar not work getting done or getting done barely. Your job when negotiating is to make your mini retirement the easiest, simplest, cheapest solution. Because most of the time, decisions are made by people, and people like doing whatever's easiest, cheapest, and simplest. Like, so do the mental preparation, do the emotional work, like figure out the logistics. Don't just drop this problem in someone's lap. Show up with a plan, but show how this plan is the best solution for them. And it's going to be so much easier just to give you a month off, give you 3 months off than to try to replace you. And people who think I would never be able to get the time off, they would never be willing to give me the time off. If you present it, like partly you have to be willing to leave like that. It's leverage because it changes that equation. Because if you can say, hey, I would like a month off. And they're like, nope. And you're like, okay, cool. And you like walk out of their office. No is the easiest answer because then it just removes their whole problem and they can go about their day. But when you're choosing between two different options and you make your option really appealing, I would say in my work, I see about an 80% success rate, even from people who are like, absolutely not. There's no way. No way they would do that. Even the example I gave with asking for the 20% raise, when we first started working together, she's like, absolutely not. They're actually so mad at me because I've taken like a couple maternity leaves and they're so irritated that they would just fire me. Like, there's no way they would let me leave. And if she just would have asked, they would have said no. But if they have to choose between her taking the summer off or losing her forever, then the easiest option is just to give her the summer off.
Let's go back to planning mini retirements. Jillian, help me out here. Like, I have a whole list of a bunch of different things that I could potentially do in my mini retirement. I'm almost feeling overwhelmed. Like, I'm not sure what the intention should be for my mini retirement. What are some ways to maybe organize or figure out what should I prioritize first for my first mini retirement? Yeah,
so this is something I explain a lot in step 1 because there are some people that are like, I have no idea what I would do with the time. I don't know those people. I'm sure they exist. I know people that are like, I have 100 things I want to do. And,
That's me.
And I know from doing this work for a long time, there are people who try to do all 100 things. And it's a train wreck because they don't do any of them well and they're very disillusioned. So picking 2 or 3, and there are a few things that I'll ask, like, it depends where people are at in their financial journey. So if they're still like, if you're in that first 25%, I always think about what's the affordability of them. Because if you front load all the affordable mini retirements, like spending a month learning tango for $1,000, super affordable. Going on an around the world cruise for 60 days, like $30,000. So front loading the more affordable options. And I have like this money health matrix, thinking through what is your physical capacity. And there are some things, if you think through the decades of your life, there are different things that are optimal and like match up well for your physical capacity in that decade of life. So if you want to hike, honestly, if you want to hike like the Pacific Crest Trail, that's a tough hike. If you could do that in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, like that's ideal. If you want to hike the Camino, 40s, 50s, 60s, that's cool. I met actually on the Pacific Crest Trail, I met people who were like late 50s who were hiking it. And they were like, we don't know if we could do this, to be honest. But we're not getting any younger. This is our best chance. So we're going to try and we might fail. Like, we should have done this 20 years ago. But it's kind of now or never. Like, we can test it out now. Or we just have to give up the dream. Like, we're not doing it because it's not going to be easier at 65. It's not going to be easier at 70. And so thinking through that physical capacity, for some people it's normal aging, but some people know they have like health conditions. They know what their parents have gone through. They know if you have been diagnosed with MS, you might be feeling pretty healthy right now, but you know that might not be the case in 10 or 15 years. Like, maybe you do the walking tour of Europe now, and then you do the around the world cruise when you're 50. Because I've been on a cruise, and there's a lot of 70-year-olds on cruises, and they're having a great time. So, like, there are cool things you can do in every decade of life, but thinking through front-loading the affordable ones, maybe front-loading the really physically active ones, the physically challenging ones. If you want to, like, build a Habitat for Humanity house for a month, that's awesome. super affordable, really physically demanding. That's a great thing for your 20s. So thinking through that can be helpful. I always ask people, like, what feels urgent right now and what feels important? And there's kind of a Venn diagram between urgent and important. And looking at the things that overlap in there can be really useful. Thinking about those seasons of life with expiration dates. Is there something that you're like, I do this now, or I deal with the regret that this is never going to happen? Some seasons of life we know are coming to a close. Some surprise us. Sometimes we think, I have an infinite amount of time for this. I have decades to like travel to Croatia with my mom and do a bike riding trip with her. And maybe you do, and maybe you don't. Like, life can be hard and unfortunate. And so prioritizing those things that if you don't do it, it's probably not going to wait for 2 or 3 decades.
I really like that health and money matrix that you were talking about there. So I'm just once again imagining a 2x2 grid, and on the vertical axis is money, low and high. And on the horizontal axis is health, low to high, and kind of starting to place all of your ideas into those 4 boxes. And if you're like me, where I'm relatively young, I'm pretty healthy, I can do most of the things on my list. There's really nothing that I feel like I probably can't do from a physical standpoint. Great. The high health things are on my radar. And then as someone that's in Coast Fi, I have some money. I can deploy some money if need be, but I don't necessarily want to derail too much or spend too much money in my mini retirement. I might be looking for like things that require high health and things that are low money. And actually, surprisingly, the Pacific Crest Trail isn't the first time that we've talked about that on the podcast. My friend Krista Edwards did it, and she's a badass.
Yeah.
We talked about that on episode 78. Very, very cool experience. Something that's on my radar. Maybe not the PCT, but some kind of long hike like that. Yeah. I think I'm circling it. And then you kind of gave us this nice framework for like urgent and important too. Like maybe once you get that matrix set in place, like go highlight anything that's like, ooh, that's urgent or that's important. And just now I have a little bit of like organization. So one of the other exercises that I really like that is in your book, Retire Often, is this dream to-do list. And this was something that I immediately implemented and wrote down because I have this crazy disorganized bucket list of mine. And these categories helped give me some categorization to all of them. So starting from the top here, you had regular to-dos, projects, friends and family, big goals, and trips. So starting from the top, like, can you name a couple of things that might be in like the regular to-do that you see on people's like mini retirement list?
Yeah, I think it's great to get through the stuff that is like open tabs on your computer. It's all these things that are kind of important, but they might not be urgent. So they sit on your to-do list for months, but they create this background noise and they create this low-level stress because you know they're there. Like maybe you need to get a crown on your teeth. Maybe like you have a bathroom that needs to be remodeled. Maybe you need to figure out your will or set up a trust, or you need to switch insurance on your cars. Like there's things that you know you need to get to, but it's just every week is too busy. Like it's not this week. And I find when people can move through a bunch of those, they go back to work even, and this is great, even if you take a month off and your goal is like, I'm just going to recover from burnout and I'm going to clear my to-do list. And you go back and you just feel so much lighter. You feel energized and focused and like ready to like tackle life because it doesn't feel like this overwhelming burden that's about to bury you at any moment. So working through some of those things, especially stuff that's annoying, irritating, boring, like, you know, it sounds kind of like a bummer to like, oh, I took a mini retirement and like I got my will set up. But it is something that, especially for like parents, you might know you need to do it. And like 3 years later, it still hasn't been done. Yeah, clearing some of those things up can be great.
Yeah, it doesn't have the excitement that probably the projects category has or the big goals category has for me. But you're right. These browser tabs that are open, they take a lot of brain space away. And every once in a while, every couple of months, I get like a weekend with no social obligations. It ends up being rainy, so I don't feel bad about not being outside. And I'm able to just like look at my to-do list and like start crossing things out. And every time on Monday morning, I like wake up and my house is clean and I've done those 4 or 5 things that have been sitting on my to-do list for months and months. I'm like feeling great and now ready to like actually tackle the week. I really like that as a potential opportunity for mini retirements, even like doing one of those a week as you progress through your mini retirement. Like if you got 8 weeks and you just do 8 things on your to-do list, like that could seem like a huge productivity hack.
Yes.
What about big projects and big goals? Can you talk a little bit about those and what might be in those categories?
Yeah, those are things that there's going to be an upfront time investment. And oftentimes it's not even just time. It's like, it's going to take mental bandwidth. It's going to take emotional bandwidth. And so it's tough to fit into nights and weekends, even if theoretically you have 2 hours at the end of the night. You're not like, I have 2 hours at the end of the night, so I'm going to go retile my bathroom. You're like, no, I'm so burned out. I'm just going to watch Netflix. And so there again, investing to make some progress on this. And like I said, it could be a health goal. You're like, I want to get into running. I want to be able to run a marathon. And so you have that time, you have that mental and emotional bandwidth to do those 7-mile runs, those 14-mile runs, because it's time consuming. And then once you get into that shape, you can kind of maintain that. There's a lot of physical goals like that. I have a friend right now who's on a mini retirement learning martial arts, like doing this big
cool.
upfront investment. And also kind of my age, and it's one of those things like, if I'm going to get good at this, like it's probably now or never. Probably not going to get great at this at 60. A lot of people, it's decluttering. Decluttering takes so much emotional energy because choosing which things to get rid of just wipes you out. So being able to work through that. Some people have house projects that have just sat undone for years, and it becomes that mental clutter of like every time you see it, you're like, yep, need to finish putting up that trim, like need to get like poles on the kitchen cabinets. But I did like my backyard. I mean, I'm obsessive, but I took a whole summer to build out a food forest. It was a huge upfront investment, but it's such a sort of like joy and learning and physical activity for me now. And yeah, maybe I could have done it nights and weekends over 15 years, but I wanted to eat plums like in 3 years, not 15 years. So there can be this really great sense of satisfaction of either getting some of that stuff done or having this thing in your life that's important to you, whether it's a hobby or a food forest or knowing martial arts or knowing tango that you can then enjoy moving forward.
That's one of my favorite things about some of these mini retirements. It almost correlates to like compound interest. And I know the FI community will understand this analogy really well, but you essentially make a sacrifice or you do something now and it's going to pay dividends and dividends of pleasure for you in the future. And something like tango, rather than learn it when you're 60 and only enjoy it for maybe 10 or 20 years, you're learning it in your 40s and you get to enjoy it for 40 years now. Same with the food forest. Like you could have waited to do that, but now you get to enjoy the plums and the berries like for the rest of your life, hopefully. And that's really cool. And there's so many things on people's mini retirement lists that I think will be a catalyst or something they get to enjoy, or at minimum, look back and remember, and it gives them this like satisfying thought. Like I know the memory dividends that is out there too. Like there's something to say about that, being able to like talk about the stories from decades ago that you took that cool, amazing trip or that time you took off. So that's really cool.
And if people are thinking about retiring early, not only you're getting kind of a practice run at this, but you're building those assets that when you retire early will pay off. Like I have a friend group I travel with a lot. Like those upfront investments of building those relationships are awesome in early retirement because then you have all these incredible friendships. You're not starting from scratch. Not starting from scratch on your friends. You're not starting from scratch on your yoga practice. You're not starting from scratch on learning guitar. You're not starting from scratch on like having these things that you enjoy. You're now able to, because starting from scratch is hard. Like it's hard and it's uncomfortable and there's a lot of failure involved. Instead, you're taking this foundation that you kind of built up front and you're able to scale it up with that extra time and attention, which is so much more rewarding and satisfying than like reinventing your life in early retirement.
I think we forget that early retirement isn't just about the monetary sense, like getting enough money to early retire, but it's some of these other skill sets or assets that you're talking about, like friendships or hobbies that are also going to play into you having a very enjoyable early retirement. So sometimes you got to set some time aside throughout your financial independence journey for those things too.
Yes, because there's a bunch of things that honestly just take a long time to develop. Like developing a best friend, you can't supercharge that like first month of mini retirement or first month of like your early retirement. You need to make that initial investment and then build on it for years and years and years so that you have that asset when you get into early retirement. There's a bunch of things that it takes a long time. Like you need to have years before you get to something that's really, it's working, it's clicking, it's enjoyable, it's exciting. And mini retirements are a great way to make that upfront investment.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's no like make a backdoor Roth conversion hack for creating a best friend. Like that would be awesome. But you're right. It's just the time and the investment into it. Jillian, this has been a blast. You have an amazing book that's coming out. Can you share a little bit about Retire Often, what somebody could expect or would take away from reading the book?
So I base this on, I've done one-on-one coaching for like 8 years on mini retirements. I've run group coaching. I've walked so many people through this process that it's not just, hey, this is a cool idea. Because I think people know that it's a cool idea. Like that resonates pretty quickly. They're like, oh yeah, a month off. That would be amazing. I have cool stuff I could do. But it's a combination of here's the 4 things, the 4 steps that like are really going to help you have a meaningful and enjoyable mini retirement. But it's also, here's all the questions people have. Here's all the fears. Here's all the ways this goes wrong. And I've seen every way that this goes off the rails. And so I'm really trying to help people have something that's meaningful and enjoyable and low stress, and it feels low risk, and it feels like this can be a lifestyle. So it is all that like tactical. Here's how to plan it. You'll know how to, by the end, you're like, I know exactly how to pull this off. But it's also to make it awesome, make it life-changing.
That's awesome. Once again, everybody, this is Jillian Johnsrud. She is the author of Retire Often, subtitle, How Anyone Can Take Multiple Career Breaks to Unlock Adventure, Advance Their Career, and Find Financial Freedom. Jillian, you're always welcome. It was such a blast talking to you and looking forward to our next conversation.
Me too.
I can't talk about it enough. My mini retirement honestly transformed my life, my trajectory of where I was headed. Not only did my mini retirement give me a time to recharge and recover from burnout, invest in a passion project, which turned into this podcast and allowed me to pivot my career. It did so many other things for me. And looking back and reflecting back, the biggest thing that it really did was it gave me a taste of what post-financial independence could really look like and feel like. So even whenever I re-entered the workforce, I have always been centered around trying to design my life like I'm living a mini retirement, taking more time to be outside, to invest into hobbies, to spend time with friends. The important things that we often forget about whenever life is so centered around work and we're so busy and drained because of work. So I hope between today's context and things that are happening in your life, you're really going to consider potentially taking a mini retirement. I think if you have something that is time-bound, or you're feeling burnt out, or you're really excited to spend more time on a project or a potential hobby, I think you should really consider taking a mini retirement. And if you do, and if it's swirling around in your head right now, I'd love to talk to you about it. Send me an email at justin@fiminded.com, and I want to hear what you're thinking about doing with your potential mini retirement and what might potentially be holding you back from pulling the trigger and moving ahead. That's it from me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation and consider mini retirements and your financial independence journey. I'll see you guys in the next episode. And until then, enjoy life.